Hello and welcome to Programming in C++. This is an introduction to the C++ language. I know you must be pretty excited about this. All the videos leading up to this point have kind of been preparing you to start jumping into the different languages.
Absolutely, yes.
So we've gone through the intro topics, we've gone through the object-oriented introduction topics.
Yeah,
and we've
a
gone
full
through
course of C and all that stuff.
the entire C
Wow.
language. So now we're getting into the language that you want to know, which is C++.
Everything before this was a waste of your time, but you know what? That collective, like we said in the C video, that collective wisdom that we have now compiled is going to be applied to the C++ programming language. So once we master C++, everything else is wide open to us because C++ is literally just a step away from getting into C# and Java and all the other higher level languages that all of you are more interested in understanding. But the thing is, if we don't understand it from this bottom level, then we're never going to understand it from the top level. You never fully know what you're doing unless you come from these roots.
Absolutely.
So that's why Brian and I have put such an emphasis on going back to C before even getting to C++.
Now, it doesn't mean we have to go back to assembly or Fortran necessarily, but at least we go back to C. I mean, it's, because C, we're not really losing a lot of time. Like, you don't lose any of the knowledge. It's applicable in C++. It's applicable in Java.
So let's get started on this journey on C++, Brian.
Right. Now that you know what you're talking about, now that this is like familiar territory, you have all the concepts down, you're basically an up and running developer now. We're going to talk to you like you are one.
Absolutely.
So just keep that in mind.
Yes, we're not going to baby you anymore. Yeah, okay, I got my take the trash out warning. What's up? You jealous?
Oh, I didn't even... I was like Redskins. Anyway. I was like, I don't think they've been playing for a while.
No, they've been out of the playoffs.
You're very much a fan.
For some
but
time.
now they know, take out the papers and the trash. Anyway, so maybe start this one.
So what is C++, Brian? Well, let me just tell you, since you look dumbfounded. It is a general-purpose programming language considered by many professionals to be a mid-level language.
That's probably not how I would have answered the question.
No, I would love to have heard your answer, but I don't want to waste the audience's time with your 5-hour-long answer.
It was developed at Bell Labs in 1979.
Well, wait, before we even get there, Brian, what the hell is a mid-level language? What does that mean? Why do people call it that?
Because it's not really a low-level language. It's not really a high-level language. It's true. That's why you feel dumb, because that's true.
I guess that's the cheater's way of answering that question.
See, it's technically a high-level language, but C++ allows both a high-level and low-level functionality.
That's true.
So,
yes.
Technically, yes, that's fair.
So it was also intended just to be an add-on to the C language. So this is what Brian and I call a bolt-on object-oriented language. It is literally built on top of C, and the language was originally called C with classes. So it's just the C language with the ability to create objects. And then later, in 1983, it was renamed to C++.
Pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome.
There's a lot of different compilers that you can get. They're both free and proprietary. So the ones that don't cost anything, the free and open ones, are like the GNU C++, which is generally what we're going to be using during this series.
Also known as G++, commonly called that.
And most of the free compilers are based on this.
Why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah. And then we have Apple C++, IBM C++. We also have a number of proprietary ones. And like you might recognize like Borland C++, Microsoft C++, and Intel made a C++ compiler.
I don't know if anybody uses that but Intel, but the important thing to kind of understand from this is all the standards, unless they kind of derive from a single one, like for example, the ones that derive from G++, all have similar standards. The other ones tend to have different standards. Now, we're going to be teaching G++, just because that is what we believe is the most easily accessible. Yeah. It's also probably one of the easiest to use. It uses the, textbook standard definition. It's the
widest net to cover all of the compilers.
Right, but you'll notice, small things, like in G++, when we include libraries, we don't have to put the .h extension, but, Borland requires it, you know? So there's little weird things. So please, if you're going to follow this with us, use G++.
And it's free, so there's no reason not to.
Yeah.
Unless you're just being a dick.
Yeah.
The C++ syntax has inspired many popular languages today. Most, you have C and then C++, and after you get through C++, it just breaks open into all sorts of different languages. And the languages you're probably more interested in learning because they're more lucrative languages to know nowadays. Like C#, Java, Objective-C, Perl, JavaScript, all the languages you've probably heard a lot of and know other people who can develop in those languages.
And you can't wait to get to those languages. Exactly. And we can't wait to get you to those languages. So Brian, fun little story about where the C++ term came from. Remember in C, when we were writing programs and we would say, I want to increment I, so I would do I++. Well, that's one better than the previous value. So C++ literally means one better than C.
Nice.
So C is one better than the C language.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty clever.
It makes sense.
Yeah. Some prerequisites that you guys are going to need in order to follow this is first the programming in C and the introduction to object-oriented programming. The reason why this is important is because we're not going to discuss any of the fundamentals of C++ because it's the same as C. So our assumption is you've already gone through that. When we get into objects and building classes, we're not going to explain the concept anymore because you should know that by now.
Also, if you haven't seen those videos, but you've been programming for a while and you are for some reason familiar with C# but not with C++ or Java, not C++, and you really just don't have the time to go through the intro, you know the concepts, you don't have time for programming in C, you should be able to jump from another language to these C videos. So don't worry too much about those. But if you're new to programming, like, they're fun videos. Absolutely watch Programming in C, Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming, or even just the intro to programming in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like they go pretty quick, and you won't regret having that structured walkthrough of programming. The fundamentals of C++ are the same as C, so we won't reiterate. We won't kind of like recover all the stuff we've already went through.
For loops, all that stuff, you know it. We're not going to touch it.
And the object-oriented concept as well has been explained